Alrighty. Okay, so I think we're going all right. Yep. All right. So, for those who don't know, I have been working on the idea of a project in which, for the year of 2021, every month there should be a challenge of some creative process of some kind. So I came up with 12 projects that are challenges to participate in each month. Some of them I created and some of them exist out there that I could join. So the list we were looking at before, I'll pull it up now, is January we would do animation. It's called Janimation. Surprise, surprise. February was, I've still got to rename it, I think, but Alphabet Project, where there are 26 letters to the English alphabet, and there are 28 days. So every reason to believe that for each day of the month, you do a different letter, and there are objects, themes, mediums, and techniques that all include a certain letter of the alphabet. So you want to do a project for each of the letters of the alphabet. You could do a woodworking project for each of the letters of the alphabet, but on one given day decide you want to do paper quilling instead for Q. That's fine. That's just the idea, is there are prompts for every letter of the alphabet in multiple ways of using those prompts. You don't have to use any of them, but do something for each of the letters of the alphabet. That was February. March is Marching to Your Own Tune, which tickled my fancy because if you look at, it was meant to be a music creation thing, but it's make an album in a month. And an album is roughly defined by the information I found to be 31 minutes minimum in length and at least 7 songs. So if you can do 7 or more songs for a total album length of more than 31 minutes, you've got an album. So if you can do that in the month of March, you're marching to your own tune, or marching to a different tune, as the phrase goes. April was going to be Script Frenzy, and then that's an old write a 100-page script in a month challenge that the creators of National Novel Writing Month came up with. It's been dead for a few years at least, but I thought it'd be fun to do it again. But moving beyond that, we have May, making a photo book, 150 photos in the month of May, compile them into a book that you could potentially publish online. I came up with the number 150 because that was the minimum number of photos in the album, the photo books that I could find published on Amazon. The smallest number of photos, actually, that's not true. I think I found a few smaller ones, but a decent number was 150 photos into a book. And I figure May was the way to go with that, making a photo book. I may have to rename that at some point. June, Solo by Solstice Game Jam. Create a board game or a computer game by yourself that could potentially be played by a single person playing solo. And you do it before the solstice on the 22nd of June. July, Independence Day in the United States, Independent Film Day, film month in my challenge year. August could be Summer Fare. Try a new recipe every day. Fare spelled F-A-R-E. So try a new recipe. Either create one or try a new one from a recipe book every day and share your experience. September, Paintember, 1 painting a day for a month. Then October, this is one of the key ones here. October, November, and December have existing competitions that I was just going to join. So October is Inktober, November is National Novel Writing Month, and December was Vlogsmas, which is sort of what I've been trying to do this year. Vlogsmas is based off of the idea of an advent calendar of videos. Okay, so if that's the way we're going to go, that works. I'm happy with that. I don't have to be the one who creates every single one of them. So Script Frenzy, Inktober, National Novel Writing Month, and Vlogsmith are all things that somebody else created. I created all the other ideas that I'm playing around with. But somebody today decided that on my list, they didn't like Inktober. Partly because the founder had so copyrighted it that people using it were getting themselves flagged and told off by lawyers. I'm like, that's kind of crappy, but I'm not branding this. I'm not pretending I created Inktober. This isn't my thing. It's just a challenge I wanted to put myself through in the month of October. But I get it. If we're going to go with the idea of a whole year full of challenges, we don't want to have a legal fight in the middle of all of these ideas. So with that in mind, they were saying I shouldn't hitch my sleigh to that. I'm like, okay, cool. I get you. I can figure out something alternative. But if we're going to do that at the same time, we got to consider that Script Frenzy is, as much as it's defunct, it is still something created by and started by and held by the National Novel Writing Month people. And National Novel Writing Month is owned by those people. And so I shouldn't claim them as mine, which I never intended to. And then December is Vlogsmith. I didn't come up with that. That's fine. So those four are the things I didn't come up with. We could accept the fact that, I don't have to do a whole year of things. But in the sense of doing something for fun, for every month of the next year, doing something creative, then let's come up with some alternatives. And literally, I had this conversation like an hour ago. And I said, I can come up with some alternatives if you'd rather have something that I'm not joining, but instead came up with for the idea myself. So here we go. I said I could come up with some ideas. And literally within the next 10 minutes, I had 3 of them down. And it's stupidly the one that took the most time for me to figure out was an alternative for Script Frenzy in April. Of course it was stupid that it was hard to figure that one out. But let's go through this now. Script Frenzy, Inktober, National Novel Writing Month, and Vlogsmith. Done. Just to get them off the list. If we're going to do a whole year of everything I came up with, let's do this. So, starting with Vlogsmith next year, take that one off the list, and we'll do the Invent calendar. Instead of an Advent calendar, an Invent calendar. And this is just goofing around if you want to create a blanket snorkel so that you can pull your blankets over your head to hide from monsters but still breathe. There you go. It's an invention. A blanket snorkel for hiding from monsters. That's an invention for one of the days. Next day, you're going to make a holder for your tacos in the car. I don't know, like something that hooks to your steering wheel. Each day, come up with something that you need to invent. They can be serious things that you really, really need. Like, I can't think of anything right now. Like a rapid deployable, like zip up wrapping paper for gifts of varying sizes. Rather than like that would literally be like I can see that being something you invent, where instead of getting wrapping paper, you have a generic small, medium, and large size that literally is just a pocket of spandex that you can pull over any gift you want to wrap and zip up the back. The gift is wrapped. You have gift wrapped it in it. That's an invention. You create that. That's your invention for the day. And you don't have to actually make the prototype. You can, but if you just design out the idea for your invention each day for the month of December, it's an invent calendar, a month of inventions. That's December. Okay, that's all new. That's me. That's nobody else did that. No copyright fears on that one. Instead of National Novel Writing Month in November, let's swap that one out for something else. Well, here's the thing. It's the penultimate month. The term penultimate is next to the ultimate, next to the biggest, the last, the end. Let's actually look up the term. What does the term actually translate? So let's do penultimate. Penultimate, last but one in a series of things, second to last. So the penultimate challenge would be the challenge that's second to last of the year. That seems perfect to me, especially because I can use it as a pun. Penultimate is the second to last challenge of the month, but it is also the pen challenge, the ultimate pen challenge. So calligraphy, lettering, drafting, inking a comic book page, making mazes, whatever you want to do with your pen. If you want to do pen spinning, where you don't actually leave a mark on anything, but you just spin a pen with your fingers, as long as you're doing it with a pen, it's a penultimate challenge. Something every day for a month with a pen. So that puts us in October, which would have been Inktober, but we're not using that now. What are we going to do? Well, I still like the idea of some of the aspect of Vlogsmas and some of the script writing stuff. So I got to thinking, like, okay, what can we do kind of in that vein? And I got to thinking, like, well, Vlogsmas is a vlog every day for the month. What if instead of a vlog, you did something that wasn't like a personal conversation about your life, but just a skit? And skit, and SKIT, ends in a T. October, remove the O, C, starts with a T. Tober, Skittober. It doesn't run off the tongue as easily as Inktober, but Skittober works for me. It sounds funny, but I'll go with it. So a skit, like a TikTok or a Instagram stories or Twitter skits that you post up, like a little clip of video, a little skit every day for a month. That's all. That's it. Simple as can be on that one. And so that leaves one more thing, which is Script Frenzy in April has to go. So if we're going to swap out Script Frenzy, what are we going to use instead? Well, it's April. I sit there and I was like, what's a good pun? What's a creative thing that we want to do that fits on that list? I can't figure it out. Like, I'd like to keep doing scripts, but like, if we're just moving away from that whole concept there, what are we going to do in April? How are we going to make that work? And this one took me the longest to figure out. And I would be embarrassed to say that, except for, of course it took me the longest to figure out, because I'm a fool. It's April Fools. Starts the month, April 1st, April Fools. Okay, so what are we going to do with that? Well, that's just super freaking easy. Like, what are you going to do for April Fool's month? How about write jokes or do a recorded stand-up comedy routine or magic tricks or optical illusions with a pen and ink drawing? I mean, duh. Like, tricks and jokes and illusions. Of course, a whole month of just making those. Yes, I am all for that. April fooling around. So literally, that's, I mean, I guess that's everything. That's all 12 months has a challenge that I came up with that we can try to do in the course of a month. Totally doable. Everything's up in there, all clear, no worries about copyright or anything like that. We're good to go on that score. Fine. Okay, so what are we going to call the whole year, though? That's my biggest problem right now. And I do think I want to rename some of them. I do have a little bit of a problem with, like, I don't like calling the February project an alphabet project. I'm a little bothered by making photo book. So I got to figure out something else for that. And then Solo by Solstice. I think I changed the recipe a day project in August to summer fair or season fair. I mean, it's summer in the northern hemisphere, so all you folks in Australia, meh. But no, but I mean, I'm bouncing around on that one a little bit. Skitober, it's not perfect, but it gives me a giggle, so I'm good with it. I think I need to work on July, which is Independent Film Month. I kind of dropped it in there because of Independence Day, but that's a U.S. specific thing. And the big one I have to worry about is the Alphabet Project, maybe reworking Independent Film Month, and figuring out how I'm going to name the Harvest Fair, Summer Fair kind of thing. And then, what do I call the whole bloody mess? What should I really call that? What's the goal? Like, is it artsy fartsy 2021? Making things. What is it? What is it that I should call that whole mess? I don't know. So I got to brainstorm up some names for each of those. But I think I did pretty reasonable considering, somebody dropped this on me. You can't use these because these are, existing things that somebody else has the rights to. I'm like, I want to join them. I want to write National Novel Writing Month. I want to do some ink work. I want to do Vlogsmas in December. I want to do Script Frenzy. Those are things I want to do. It doesn't matter to me whether or not I created them, because by the end of the day, it's not about whether or not I own the thing. It's about whether or not I did something I enjoyed and other people were inspired by the idea of those things to do them as well. Because here's the thing. When I started doing projects for my own creative fulfillment, I did it by joining National Novel Writing Month, not by making National Novel Writing Month, not making it my own or claiming to own it or doing any such thing, but by joining something that other people were doing. That's all I really want. The only reason I created most of these things that I put on this list was simply because nobody else had made anything for them. If I want to make an independent film in the summer, nobody was doing it, so I didn't have any options. So if I want to do that, I have to do it myself. I have to make it myself. It sort of reminds me of a joke somebody once made. It was something along the lines of, if you want to be at the top of your industry without having to work your way up from the bottom or compete with others, then make your own industry. All right. If you want to compete in a challenge to make a film in a month and you don't want to, there's nobody else who's giving you that chance, then do it yourself. Make the challenge yourself. And so that's sort of what I was doing. A game jam? Nobody was making a game jam in June. I couldn't find a single one that I could use. So I said, all right, starting at the start of the month of June, let's do a game jam. Board games, tabletop games, card games, computer games. The only qualification is you're the only one allowed to be working on it. This is not a team effort, none of that stuff. You're the only one allowed to do it. You got 1 month, make a game. Nobody was offering that opportunity. I made it. Making a photo album book. I didn't see anybody else doing that, so let's go ahead and do that. Making music, a music album in a month. Does anybody even buy albums anymore, or do they just buy singles off of Apple something or other, or iTunes or whatever? I don't know. But when thinking about making music, what to set the barrier at, finding out that 7 songs, 31 total lapsed minutes on the album equals the minimum requirements to reach an album. All right, that's the minimum requirements. In the month of, April, in the month of April, here's your goal. Achieve it. Go for it. Nobody else was suggesting that. Okay, let's do it. I don't have to do that for everything. But if people have worries about other people claiming copyright, like Inktober, like my understanding of the situation with Inktober, and I have no grudges or horses in any of those races, not my problem. But my understanding of that situation with Inktober is the guy who created it, he created it as a brand so that he could sell Inktober kits. Originally, it was started as something he said he did because he wanted to be a better inker for his comics. It became popular enough that the name became a brand, which he then claimed ownership of, and then tried to enforce that ownership through legal means. And that bothered a lot of people. All right, I get it. It is what it is. And then past that point, in this last year, somebody posted a video on YouTube saying, look, he suggested you draw this to demonstrate this particular skill. And I said the same thing in my book and said it was like plagiarism. And, ideas are not copyrightable. There's copy dress, which is if it's the exact same layout or meant to impersonate the original creator's markings as sort of like if you looked at the logo of an Applejack cereal and then you saw the knockoff brand use the exact same font in the exact same shape, in the exact same colors, in the same direction, that's copy dress. You're ripping off their style. Like if you couldn't read the letters and you couldn't tell the difference between the two, other than that they look a little bit different, but you could, out of the corner of your eye, take one and mistake it for the other. Yeah, it's copy dress. You violated that because you're trying to hook on to their customers. Not because you have created a competitor to them, but simply you are trying to steal their customers from them by being confused for them. I think that there was an Eddie Murphy movie where there was a guy, I think it was Coming to America, where the guy was fighting in court because he had opened a restaurant that served burgers and fries and had a logo which was a red shape with a golden M. And he was claiming it was a comedy joke about saying like, oh, but we're not McDonald's because we're MacDonald's. The difference is we have an A and they don't, or whichever way it goes. And then the additional joke on that was, and they're the golden arches and we're the golden arcs. And just every little like, we're not the same thing, despite the fact that everything about you is the same. And so, like, that's copy dress. You're stealing somebody's copy dress. And it's one of the reasons where, like, nobody can copyright simple concepts from games. Like, nobody can copyright the idea of moving a pawn from square to square on a board. You can't copyright that. But if your squares are designed in a certain way to be candy colored, and there's a candy theme to the board, and the pieces are, a shoe and a top hat made out of pewter, then you are violating copy dress, but not copyright. So is there a question as to whether or not the guy who created Inktober violated copy dress? I don't see enough there, but I haven't seen the finished published book. Now, are the ideas he's covering copyright material? No. The idea of shading a square from top to bottom is not copyright material. That's just my feeling on it. Whatever way you want to play that. So the big stink over Inktober, as far as I can see, is that this guy has copyrighted the use of the term Inktober. And so anybody who makes ink artwork in October and hashtags it as Inktober could see, cease and desist from lawyers of the guy who founded it. That's fine, whatever. Like, it's a kind of sort of a cheesy thing to do, is to use an audience base to generate the interest in it. He's made a brand of it to a degree that it's known the world over. When somebody says Inktober in France, somebody's probably heard of it. That's fine. Like, he made a brand of it, but he made that brand off of other people being interested in and participating in it. To now slap anybody who tries to use it, saying like, these are my works from Inktober, to hit them with a lawsuit, that's kind of it's sort of a jerk move, but it's his brand. If he wants to enforce it that way, I'm not going to fight him on that. And I wasn't arguing to claim any part of that. But I can see where some people would want to avoid that. That's fine. The plagiarism claims, it's not plagiarism, but is there question about copy dress? I don't know. I have no comment on it. I don't have enough information about it. And it's not impactful on whether or not I'm going to do ink drawings in October. But are we going to count that as the challenge for October now? Probably not. Just because it's going to be something that causes too many questions and bothers enough people, it's not worth putting up with. So, with that in mind, I came up with alternatives. I would almost guarantee you National Novel Writing Month would not have an issue with me participating in National Novel Writing Month out loud as part of my yearly challenge. But we don't have to include that. We can do something else. We can take that to the penultimate month. So that's what I did. I just said, all right, let's make everything original. We're not borrowing or using anybody else's ideas or challenges. You can opt to still do both National Novel Writing Month and the penultimate challenge at the same time. You can create skits and Skitober. You can invent in December with me, or you can do a Vlogsmas, or you can do both. And I had no real fight in that game. It's just like, we could do anything. So let's just do anything. So that's sort of where I stand on that now. It was just sort of like, it's another one of those arguments that comes up oftentimes during National Novel Writing Month, where like people are like, well, that story sounds so much like this one, you're just stealing their story. That's not how that works. That argument I've made for years, and as part of the channel's idea that I created here, is any two creative people given the same ideas to start from will create their own thing. And I genuinely feel like I'm not creating these challenges to say like, oh, you didn't create something as good as me, but by the end of the month. The goal is to literally just make something, because I want to know what you would make in those same time periods. If we both started with the exact same prompt on one of the days in February for the letter Q, you might do something with a quilt, you might do something with paper quilling, you might write something with a quill. I don't know. It doesn't matter. If we pick one, paper quilling, you and I do something with paper quilling. Even if we paper quilled a quilt pattern on the same day, I guarantee you what we end up with will be something that you can see that I made and is my work, and you did something that was you and your work. We're not going to create the same thing. You have to actively try to copy somebody in order for that to happen. That's not the goal here. And so like that challenge of like, you can't write a story about dwarves, elves, and wizards and not be ripping off Lord of the Rings. Baloney. I'm sorry. That's not a real thing. You need to get over it. Give everybody prompts. Let them play with the idea. Give everybody an afternoon where you all sit down and watch the same movie, and then you all sit down for the next month and write a fan fiction about that movie. You're not going to get any two people creating the exact same fan fiction. That's my goal here, is to create the idea that we're all going to sit down and we're all going to work on similar projects, but we're all going to be able to create something that's uniquely our creation. And I want to see what you make. That's the most important part to me. Like, I can make my own projects and quietly do it by myself in a closet, and nobody will ever see them, and that's fine. You don't have to see them. But I want to see what we all make. Good, bad, whatever. Like, you may not be as proud of your work as you should be. That's fine. We can all feel bad about not feeling up to a task. But I still want to see what you came up with, because it tells me a lot about you. It tells me a lot about your world and the ideas that you have. And maybe it's not the best novel I've ever read when you write it during National Novel Writing Month. But I guarantee you there's some gems of stories out there. And one of the best examples of that is in the forums of National Novel Writing Month's website. People chit-chat all month long and past the month about ideas and things. And there are specific threads about adopt a character, adopt a plot, adopt this, adopt that. Elements of stories that people just couldn't figure out how to make and don't have any interest in carrying forward. Here you go. Here's this idea that I'm not using anymore. Make something with it. And so people do. And I've perused those forum posts in the past, and there's some really fun ideas in there. Some of them are just juvenile challenges. Can you write a story about a purple-skinned dwarf who eats only broccoli? Like, where is that useful in a story? It's not. And so sometimes it's just goofy. You can include that in a story as just part of meeting the challenge. And that can be fun to do in and of itself. Or you can adapt it, come up with a Star Trek fan fiction where there's an alien species that's vegetarian and they're purple-skinned. I mean, that's fine. That's workable. You've done something with it. But at the same time, there are totally really good stories where, like, I think one of them I remember years ago was somebody was talking about, I have a character who's wrapped in chains. He's a living person, but he wraps himself in chains like a ghost, and he hunts other ghosts and captures them or something like that. I'm like, it's not a fully formed idea, but the idea that every link in his chain is a ghost spirit that he's captured is what comes to my mind. And I start to think of, like, what can I do with that? How can I make a story off of that? That's an idea somebody else abandoned because they didn't know what to do with it. But I can instantly think of, like, I could probably do something interesting with that and just start writing. And even if in the course of any of these projects, somebody starts a project, doesn't like the result, considers it a half-finished and unsuccessful attempt for that day, I still want to see what you did, because I think there's value even in the abandoned, half-finished project. I still want to see what you were thinking about and what ideas that your brain came up with that I didn't come up with on my own, but now I'm inspired by what you did to do something else. Like, I want to see that. And that's half the fun of doing these challenge projects. So, yeah, it's a bit of a rant tonight, but I think I'm going to call it there. It's a little more high energy than I'm used to doing at these late nights, but it is what it is. It is whatitis. As it stands tonight is Sunday. I believe my next, I don't want to say required, but my next scheduled video is Tuesday. Live stream. There we go. Tuesday. I talked to some people about what I'm doing for Vlogsmas, and I guess technically the taste tests qualify. I don't have to worry about getting something else up every other day, but I'm still going to do the live videos on the days that I do them. And if I want to slap up another one during the course of the week, I will. I'm not going to hold myself to doing it every day. But I do want to detail each of the projects per month before we start the new year. Just sort of get a detailed outline of what each involves and where we're going with it. And then sort of like a reminder as we approach the start of each monthly project. So I have at least 12 other videos left to do. I guess we're almost at a point where I have to do one a day, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 18 days left. 12 videos about each of the months of the coming year out of that time theoretically should go up before we start the new year. And if I'm really thinking about it, I want the 31st to be New Year's Eve and not be a video about any of the months itself. So 13 days. So yeah, I mean, I've got 5 days on top of that to make that work out at some point. I do think I'm going to keep them shorter and concise compared to this now almost 40-minute rant. So I think I will try my best to keep them under 10 minutes. Maybe even under 5. That'll be an interesting scripting challenge for me. I'm not used to doing under 5 minutes. All right. I hope you enjoyed some of what I talked about tonight and thought it was interesting. And I appreciate you being here. But for now, I'm going to say take care and have a good night. Hope you're doing okay. Winter is upon us now, and pandemic is definitely upon us. Seeing more and more people I know get tagged by it. Gotta watch out. Take care.